I'm putting the microscope up close to some of the tools and resources and processes that are involved in making the journey Carol and Raymond have just taken us through. And I'm doing that through an analysis of a set of resources that have been developed over the last 13 years by a range of national government agencies in England. And for the full paper will be on Cure's website on Monday. There's a short paper on the AERA website, and the slides will be on Cure's website there. But through the paper and here, I'm thinking about research resources here as things that have been expressly made for practitioner users of research to take the important findings and understandings and bring them to their life for the people who are putting them to work at the service of young people's learning. And within that, I'm thinking very particularly about tools that have been developed to scaffold the learning of the users, tools that have been deliberately made to engage people in active learning processes so that the core concepts, theories and principles from the research are held together and present through that complicated human process Carol's just been describing for us. The research resources I've been talking about are many and various. I've taken those from 5 of the national agencies who've expressly decided that they want to support use of research and evidence. But as you can see from this graphic we made for our website, there are simply an enormous number of research resources made by national agencies. And so we've taken 3 questions for practitioners. Where can I find practitioner-friendly research summaries? Where can I find tools and activities to involve or support my colleagues in using research and evidence? And where can I explore why things do and don't work, and the underpinning rationale and theory? And each of those stations is a hot link to a set of resources. It's just one way of giving you some sense of how many resources exist and the sense-making process that's needed to find your way through that. So I've been applying some analytic lenses to those resources for this paper, and in particular I've been looking at Viviane Robinson's wonderful best evidence synthesis on the impact of school leadership, and in particular that section she's written about smart tools. By smart tools she means tools of the sort I was just describing that are absolutely rooted in sound theory and that are put together expressly for the purpose of supporting changes that enhance the learning of young people. So I've been using her criteria and applying that to the resources that are here. And the other thing that I've been using is a framework we were commissioned to create for the Department for Education and Skills for monitoring and evaluating the national government research resources in 2007, which has 6 components. Part of that is about making sure that the research really is relevant to practice. Another part of it is raising practitioners, certainly in England's awareness of just what research have to offer. They're a pretty sceptical bunch very often, don't necessarily have high expectations. Another part is easy to say, just making sure people understand what the research says. Easy to say, hard to do. Then, really important part of the resources is enabling practitioners to feel that what's coming out of research is part of their world too, to make an emotional connection with it, part of the women's skill point. Then this really important underpinning thing, if we don't give the practitioners a chance to understand why things work the way they do from research, they're condemned to use it in the form they first encounter it. It's getting a grip why that makes us stay with the thing over time and wrestle with it till we've put it to work. And then finally, this really important part of the piece, which is about the active learning process for practitioners. And I won't, in the paper I describe this, but this is a way of trying to represent visually how different papers try and address these topics. And the shading denotes how much emphasis for any particular research resource is given on reliability and generalizability. And you can see there's a spread from practitioner inquiry made systematically available on the lemon yellow end, right through to very, very technical, comprehensive, systematic research reviews at the other. So shading denotes amount of emphasis on the quality of the evidence, and the breadth of the cylinders is trying to denote how big the audience is and how wide a spectrum each of these resources is trying to deal with. And one of the things the paper goes into in quite a bit of detail is the importance of clarity about different audiences and purposes. For those of you who don't know, Vivian Robinson's criteria for smart tools, here they are. She takes the point about rationale and pushes it one stage further than what I've been saying. She wants to know why a piece of research is going to make a difference on the ground. What's the change driver behind it? She puts in a tough demand on us all that we need to acknowledge when we're writing research up that people using it have their own existing conceptions and they have to put those to work, and we need right from the word go to acknowledge that, to say when things are counterintuitive and so on. She's also challenging us to signal likely misunderstandings on the way, things that will be obstacles. These are tough tests to apply to research products, because I guess you're all thinking of the papers you've written and thinking, how am I doing on this one? She's very, very strong on connecting abstract principles with detailed illustration, and she wants those illustrations to be close to the real lived world of people, and she puts that that's part of why we have to think about very specific audiences, and then be embedded in documents that are logically structured around a clear and unambiguous purpose. So, okay, we know how to do that. We've got some criteria. Well, when I apply those to the resources we've got in the UK, there's a lot of analysis in the paper, but here are some headlines of what I found. Analysing teachers' own research questions is one of the things we need to do and take more seriously in order to make sure research really is relevant. When you look at 3 years of teacher research questions from about 15,000 teachers in the UK, one of the things they were signalling as long ago as 2006 was that they wanted research about curriculum in their own context. There's not a great deal of that available in the UK. So there are things we can learn from that. Second thing is that if you take things like Cynthia Coburn's work on transferring learning and taking it to scale, if you take a theory of change about use of research that's based on CPD, which is where we're coming from, or if you take Vivian Robinson's work, it all converges in the end, and of course it does, because you're using research and learning. So it is all in the end going to come together. But that in particular, what you find from that is that we need to plan real structure into the learning processes, and that's challenging. It's just a challenge in supporting young people's learning, and tools have a role there. One size fits no one. We really do need to pay attention to particular audiences and think about who it is we're writing for all the time. And on the whole, although across the resources that we have in England at the moment, you can find good, strong material that meets all of Robinson's criteria, you very rarely find it in one place. There's still a job to do in pulling the different elements together. Many of the resources are still too generic. They are still being written as though a beginning trainee is in the same place as an advanced skills teacher or a lead practitioner and so on. Tools are very late on the scene, but the ones we've got are really helpful. They do meet many of Vivian's criteria, and they are focused where they need to be. It's just that we need a huge amount more investment in that area. That the theory and the practical details and purpose of change are much too infrequently brought together in concrete relationship with each other. We have very little evidence indeed about something that's very important. How tough a cognitive demand is using any individual piece of research going to make? How big a practical demand? And what kind of research resources will be needed to enact that? They're not things on the whole that the research is making plain, so we can't at the moment use research to make that plain to practitioners. So in a year's time, if we're back here, that's certainly something I hope we'll have been able to do a great deal more on. Thank you very much indeed.